Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Homefront Harmony, the podcast that specializes in providing military families with the resources for mental health, well-being, and financial. I'm very excited for our guest today. Mr. Randy Lloyd is not only a veteran, but he also continues to serve his fellow service members with the work he's doing now. And so it is my pleasure and honor to introduce you to Randy. How are you, my friend?
Wonderful. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for being a part of this today. What I always like to start with is talk about what led you into the military.
It's funny. We were just having that conversation on the way over here and how, at that age, for a lot of young men, it's very, it's walking into the unknown,
right.
I knew that I lacked a skill set that was going to provide me the tools to be an effective man. So that was an easy decision for me to make because I wasn't like a very scholastically,
That's a big word, scholastically.
Now. Yeah. So I wasn't going to go to college. I did what I had to do in high school to play sports. And then the military just seemed like an easy decision for me to make at that age on knowing what to do. And it was, I was right.
There you go. So, okay. Side note, sports. What did you play?
I played football and wrestled.
Okay. Football. Yeah. What position did you play?
So it's funny because I weigh the same weight now as I did in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just makes look a little different. So, I was mainly, a pulling guard, played on the line, did have a stint at fullback, but defense was my main thing. Nose guard, defensive line. Yeah. Okay. I like hurting people. So
I love football. So we're always going to talk about football. Now, because I'm still on my year off between high school and college. So when you decided to pursue the military, did you know exactly what branch you wanted to go to, exactly where you wanted to go, or?
Well, so my grandma was a retired master sergeant. So
oh, wow. Go grandma.
In the Army. Yeah. Okay. So, I checked them all out at first. I mean, I think the first one, guys try to get into is the Air Force because it seems like least risky, know, but they said I was too fat.
Oh.
And so then it was between, either the Marines or the Army because I don't want to be on a ship, in the Navy.
Daughter of a Navy man. Love the Navy. Yeah, sorry.
It doesn't seem the ocean is scary to me. So
well, you know what? Funny story. So my father was on a ship and he hadn't been in service long and he was telling us this story and he said they were all jumping off the ship and swimming in the ocean and he's like, this is so fun. And he jumps off and he's underwater and he opens his eyes and he sees something off in the distance, white. And it's coming towards him. And he thought, oh my God, this is how I die. I'm going to get eaten by a shark. And he couldn't move and he was frozen and it got closer and closer. And then finally it was a flag on one of the ropes off of the ship. There was no shark.
Yeah, that's a big bowl of hell no. No, I don't want anything to do with that. So, the Army just seemed like the best fit for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually had aspirations to be a chef out of high school. Like I like to cook. So I figured I would go into the military, and, be a cook to get some experience, but when I went through basic training, I found that I was really good at soldiering. Like I excelled to a level that I didn't anticipate, it's where I really started to develop my tools as a leader.
Gotcha.
So the fundamental foundation of what I do now really came from what I learned in basic training.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I joined basic training, went to AIT, which was, 9 weeks of cooking, which I did not enjoy.
AIT?
Advanced Individual Training.
There we go.
Yeah. So,
not everybody knows the acronyms. I got to keep it flowing.
We're watching a veteran podcast.
Hey, but you know what? Military kids don't know all the acronyms.
You're right. AIT kids.
There we go.
Advanced Individual Training.
Perfect.
So, and then I got into my unit and it was already, they had been deployed.
Okay.
So I was part of the rear detachment. And then about a year after that, I got cross-leveled to another unit that was being deployed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So like right out the gate, I was deployed to Mosul, Iraq from '05 to '06.
Okay.
And I was part of a maintenance unit, and our main mission was to supply convoy security for third country nationals coming in from Syria.
Okay.
Into Mosul.
Okay.
So, because your first job in the military is a soldier, right? So even though we were a maintenance unit, our main objective was to be soldiers, because a lot of that stuff at that time was already contracted out to civilian contractors.
True.
So the maintenance stuff like that was civilian contracting. So I was in a really cool position because I was a cook, and that was contracted out too by KBR.
Okay.
Right. So I literally had no job. So I did a lot of jobs.
Oh, there you go.
So I was a TC, tank commander. I was a driver. I was a gunner. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
So we would escort 100 TCN trucks up to the border of Syria, and we ran our convoys at night.
Okay.
So every 10 trucks, we'd have a Humvee or a 5-ton, up armored, and we would just drive to Syria, drop them off. The next night, drive back with a full load,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and engage anything that came across our way. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then we also, because we were a maintenance unit, we had a wrecker, which is essentially a military tow truck. So we had a recovery team, which I was on, which something got hit. They'd call us, we'd roll out, go get it, come back.
Okay.
So my deployment was a lot more involved with other things than just, one thing, So I felt lucky to be able to get a lot of experience that way.
No, that's awesome. We've had some other guests on here. We had Omar Foster, who actually ended up working honor guard. And like he said, of all the things he did, the honor guard was his favorite thing that he did, just because everybody thinks it's one thing, but there's so much more to it than you realize. And I think that you bring up a very great point, because a lot of people believe military service is just one thing. Well, it depends on the path you're on and which way you're going as to what you're going to do,
And that falls right into the line of what it is I've done with since. So post deployment, decided I'd go to college because I could.
Yeah.
And actually figured out that I was somewhat intelligent.
Oh, look at that.
I know.
Who knew?
I know. Nobody told me. So, but with that awakening came a lot of questions and stuff. And at that point in time, about a year post-deployment, year and a half post-deployment, started dealing with some PTSD issues. And being a natural athlete, and another bucket list goal of mine or main goal of mine in life was to be a bodybuilder.
Okay.
So, I'm finding myself in college around a bunch of kids, because at this time I'm 25, they're 18, don't really fit in, pretty isolated, but still gravitate towards, the jocks and stuff like that. And wasn't a drinker.
Gotcha.
So started self-medicating, started using pain pills as a means to combat some of the PTSD issues.
Gotcha.
Self-medicating with prescription opiate medication during the boom of the opiate epidemic.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was so easy to get pain pills.
Yeah.
And I remember being in college, coming home from class one day, driving, thinking to myself, when's the last day you went without a pill? Because my family background of addiction. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad was, drugs. He was a car salesman, lived fast and loose.
Yeah.
So I'd seen it in my face growing up.
Yeah.
And so you're always having that question, am I addicted? And so really just went downhill from there. Ended up dropping out of college, losing everything. Went to, and this was in St. George, Utah. I was going to Dixie State University at the time. That's what it was called. And then moved up to Salt Lake City because that's where most of my family was.
Okay.
my opiate addiction turned into a full-blown intravenous heroin addiction. Overdosed, was dead.
Oh, man.
Paramedics, were getting ready to defibrillate me, gave me the Narcan, brought me out of it. And that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, like if I don't do something, I'm going to get buried,
Yeah, yeah.
And so I checked myself into the VA rehab in Salt Lake City, Utah. Did 9 weeks there, didn't really, was in another place where I didn't really feel I fit in,
Yeah.
I wasn't really big on, the 12 steps, meeting, but it was a time for me to really start to reflect on, the decisions I was making, and the big part of it was taking accountability. Right.
Absolutely. And I think like one of the key points here is if you're watching this and you're struggling, okay, he's talking about this looking back on it and understanding the comprehension. And I'm sure I'm not speaking out of turn when I say it wasn't just you know what? I have a drug problem. I need to go into rehab. It was a process.
So I went through detox 2 times prior.
Oh, wow.
Right? Just because I wanted to get over the withdrawals, right? Because that's the worst part of an opiate addiction is coming off of it. The withdrawals are just terrible.
Okay.
So thinking to myself, if I just get through the withdrawals, I'll be okay, and find myself going back to it. So yes, it is a process of self-reflection, getting, and realizing that you yourself can't be the only thing that is in this fight, Yeah. And so, that's when I went to rehab, I went with the notion. I remember we had a family group, and my mom was there, and the topic of conversation going around the group was, what do you want to get out of this experience? What do you want to get out of rehab? And it got to me, and I was like, well, I just want to understand what's going on with my brain. Right.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk to people. I don't need to talk about the trauma. I don't need to get all, mushy and stuff like that. Like, do I have a chemical imbalance? Is it something, inherited? Is it something, how can I want to talk to a doctor? You know what I mean? And this was one of the most profound turning points in my recovery process. And so the counselor that was leading the group, he said, Randy, you've got to understand something right now. You're in a house that's engulfed in flames. Your mom just wants to get you out of the house. You want to sit around and talk about how the fire got started.
Yeah.
And it just hit me like, okay, yeah, maybe I need to, take this a little more serious. And I participated, and but I really found myself through that process and coming out of it after I got out of rehab. This was in Salt Lake City, Utah. My mom had moved here to Vegas.
Okay.
And so I moved down to Vegas to get away from the people, places, and things where I was around up there.
The connections, yeah.
Knew nobody here and had nothing to my name. Like I literally had a duffel bag of clothes and took a shuttle bus down to Vegas and started my life all over again. And that was just, the beginning of coming out of the funk, right? Because when I still got home, I was dealing with an immense amount of dark depression because now, what I was self-medicating for, I was having to deal with, and also having to deal with the type of person I was for the past 2 years.
Yep. And
how do I get back to and I also had a record. I was a convicted felon. I got caught with I got a possession charge. So now I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, I can never be the best version of myself I could have been because of this mark that will always be on my life.
Yeah.
Right. And so my mom said, I would sleep a lot. And she said, what do we need to do to get you going again? I said, give me a gym membership.
Yeah.
Because like I said prior, I had aspirations to be a bodybuilder, and I had actually done a show when I was in college, right?
Okay.
So my mentor coach in high school, he was my football and wrestling coach. He was also a bodybuilder.
Okay.
And so he kind of took me under his wing at a young age, and I learned the intricacies of what it is to be a bodybuilder, which is a lot more than people give it credit for nowadays. That's for sure. Everybody trains hard until they train hard. So,
but it fits for me from the soldier mentality working for you, the discipline required in the bodybuilding world. It's not exactly the same, but I can see the alignment to it, why that would match.
Well, and it's so crazy because, when you're going through these tough times, if I were to impart any wisdom on anybody listening to this right now, when you're going through hard times, just know that they can't last forever. And that if you keep moving forward, you'll get through it. Because and if you're asking yourself, like, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? I promise you it's for a reason. Right. Right. So after I started going back to the gym, like, when I initially wanted to be a bodybuilder, it was because I wanted to be jacked and look good.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough. Valid point.
But what I realized when I went back to it, because when I went back to it, I would try to kill myself in the gym because I figured it would just be a better way to go. But then I found myself walking out of the gym with a much clearer perspective on everything. Yeah. My brain was working better. Yeah. I was able to process the things more effectively. Yeah. So it was something that I recognized in it that I hadn't recognized before, so I had committed to myself to go to the gym every day. Yeah. Even if I didn't want to go, like, at least get to the parking lot. And if you still want to go home, go home. But I never went home, Yeah. And then I got a job where I met your husband. Yes, yes.
Yeah. See, my husband talks to everybody.
Yeah. And it was just a natural fit. It's, supplements, GNC, all around health and wellness and helping people be better versions of themselves. And so it married really well. And I worked my way up to management pretty quickly. And really started accomplishing everything that came in front of me with this system of consistent exercise, healthy food, lead, teach, motivate people. I think one of the biggest things, that veterans struggle with is that sense of a team. Once you lose that, you feel kind of lost. So being able to, run these stores, I was developing my own teams, Oh,
absolutely.
And it was, and I really became very good at it. And, but I still felt like unfulfilled. Like I felt like every veteran needs to know about this. Right. Right. Like I'm sitting here thinking, like, what kind of thing could I do to potentially, make a nonprofit or something that puts fitness as an emphasis over getting over PTSD and all those issues. And every year, most years, we have the Mr. Olympia competition here in Vegas, right? So it's like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, right? So there's a huge convention at the Las Vegas Convention Center, all the supplement companies there. We had a booth there, GNC, and then Performix, which is a line of supplements, called my boss to ask if there were any managers that could come work their booth because they were shorthanded. And this is where I get to, if you don't know what the reason is, just keep going. Okay. Because it'll slap you in the face. Okay. I get to the booth and one of the leaders there, he comes up to me, he's like, hey, I want to thank you guys for coming and helping us out. By the way, when people come to our booth, I want you to make sure you talk about our new initiative that we're funding called Mission Next. Okay. It's a nonprofit that helps veterans become personal trainers and utilize fitness and a healthy lifestyle to overcome PTSD.
Which is awesome because so many veterans I know, because fitness is such a part of your life during your service, naturally the continuation on after it helps. I mean, I know for me, like I am not a bodybuilder, but I have this whole, I'm going to be fit for 50 thing going on, and I'm doing my treadmill, and it's not a lot, and I do, basic resistance band and stuff like that. But man, that 30 minutes on the treadmill, holy cow, it will clear my head up. I will de-stress. My poor husband gets to hear me because I have music on really loud. I'll either sing it really loud or I will have role play conversations. I'm going to have a business throughout the day or something. It just helps me.
Yeah. Therapy.
Yeah, it does.
It's the best form of therapy I've ever done. And I've done a lot of different forms of therapy, right? But when he told me that, I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
I go, it's going to work. He goes, what do you mean? I go, and I told him my story. And he goes, are you kidding me? I go, no. He's like, I need you to talk to somebody. So I talked to the president of Performance, who was the founder of FitOps, and they hadn't even done a class yet. So they asked me if I would come and help to interview candidates for the first class and come help teach it. So it's a 3-week course.
Okay. Veterans
don't pay for a dime.
Nice.
You stay there for 3 weeks. It's camp style, and you study for a nationally accredited certification and get hands-on instruction. You know? So being the first iteration of this, we didn't really know what to expect. Right. We were in a camp in Texas, like a summer camp, but it wasn't summer, so there was nobody there. So we all, we had 2 people per room, and then we had a big hall that they dropped off 4 rogue racks and a box of NASM books and said, go.
Wow. Yeah.
And through that, the founder, Matt Hesse, he got up and spoke. And when he got up and spoke to us, he had such a premonition of because he had talked about some things that he hadn't talked about before. Right. And how cleansing it was. And so we made that a steeple for the class if you wanted to come up and tell your story. And at that point, I'd been still embarrassed about my addiction and, what I did and stuff like that. And so I got up and told my story. And this is where the personal accountability really comes into play. Yeah. Right? Because just like you said about fitness being in the military, it's because it's your job. Right. Right? Right. Now, when you get out of that, you don't have to make it it's not your job anymore, so you don't have to do it, right? That's where the personal accountability comes in. That's where I realized, I'm better when I do this. I'm more effective when I do this. Oh, that's probably why the military makes you do it. Right. Right. Yeah. So I correlated my down times, my worst times with a very victim-y behavior. Like, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. You know what I mean? This is why I'm doing this. And by no means am I downplaying anybody's trauma. No. Right? But one thing that I hope, especially the veteran community should and can realize is just going through basic training, you developed a set of tools and skills that if you apply to any other aspect of your life, you're going to be successful. Don't forget about those, right? Most of them want to focus on what happened. Yeah. Some of them want to focus on what they got out of it, and there's versions of it. Yeah. But just knowing the fact that you have the skill set available to you just from what you went through a basic training and then all the other training that you encompassed, it's not just the trauma that you got out of the military. It's also the skills. And so, being able to work with other veterans that were at that place I was. Yeah. Right. And they see me. And at this point, I am big, I'm strong, I've done a couple bodybuilding shows. I'm what they want to be. And then I tell them my story. Yeah. And it blows their mind, you know? Yeah. And when I tell it, it's like, I don't tell it because I'm better than it. Like, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I think everybody has it within them to be able to overcome whatever struggle they want, as long as you have the right focus and direction and where you're going. And
I think that one of the problems we deal with a lot, and this is not just the military community, my friends, okay? We all deal with a lot. When something is wrong, when something is bothering us, when something is affecting us, our tendency is to try to find a real quick, okay, it needs to be fixed. This is how I've decided it needs to be fixed to do. When it turns out that there's actually steps and processes through it that you have to go through just to get there, sometimes that's what will stall the process for the people because no, I said I need to be fixed. I need to be fixed. And I think that, so I have to work on my mindset. We've talked about this before. We'll talk about it again. I don't like the fact that I get emotions.
Why?
I've never liked emotions at all. I just don't like it. I was a tomboy. I just didn't care. Life was fine. As I get older and my body decides to give me extra hormones, oh my gosh. Okay. Like it's irritating, the stuff that makes me cry. And crying was always to me a weakness. And it was funny because my dad I'd be like, I don't know why I'm crying. My dad would go, oh, baby, it's because you're a girl and you can't help it. Sorry. It wasn't a weakness. It wasn't anything. And that, I think, when we deal with PTSD, when we deal with conversations where maybe somebody made a mistake and they got involved in something or they got addicted to something or where they go, that saying, hey, that wasn't the move I needed to do. Hey, I need to fix it. That's one of the strongest things you can ever do. You're not weak because that happened to you. Everybody makes decisions that they got to face the consequences of. You're not weak because you did. You're actually braver and stronger because you turned it around.
And that goes right back to where, I said, that victim behavior, why me? Why is this happening to me? Now I find myself in a position where I am absolutely the most qualified person in the room. Right? If I wouldn't have went through this, if I wouldn't have went through all that struggle, if I wouldn't have gone through that, then I wouldn't be able to affect these other veterans and men and women that are going through the same struggles that I've faced myself.
Oh, yeah.
So all of a sudden the aha moment comes. It's like, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. And now the belief is I can only be the best version of myself because of what I went through.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so, when you're in that dark place and you think that things aren't ever going to be good or not going to be what you expected, they might be better.
Yeah.
But it does take effort. It takes focus. It takes personal accountability,
It does. And you're right. It takes different switches to trigger people. Sure. We had Justin from Breakfast Brigade in here. He is former military and now he does like food videos on Instagram. Love him. And he was talking about how he was interacting with some veterans, and this one veteran was really having a hard time, was very candid. Like he said, yeah, I got PTSD. It's fine. I don't want to talk about it. And Justin's like, cool. But some other veteran heard him and came up, started talking to him. And from that veteran talking to him, his attitude changed. Because someone needed to share their story and he could listen to it and he could encompass it. And it just slowly ended up getting him to the point where he was comfortable. And Justin said it was a cool process to see because he was one that he's very open like you. He just talks about it kind of thing. But yeah, some people, it takes that little more of a nudge.
And that's what we found at FitOps, right? Was all of a sudden like, because being a veteran, you're 10% of the population, right? So unless you're around a bunch of other veterans, you're not going to be able to talk about the things that, are bugging you or you went through and have anybody really understand, you know, because I don't want your sympathy. I don't want, you know what I mean?
No, you need your military community to be able to have that.
When I had a veteran look at me, tell me their story, and I go, okay. Okay. Rather than, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Oh, I don't know what that's like.
Or like we were, one of our other guests, Bill Emmel, we were talking about therapists, and he goes, it's very hard to go sit down with a therapist who has no idea, has never seen what you've seen, has never done what you've done. And they're like, well, talk to me. Well, let's do it. And he's like, you're not going to understand.
So that's one of the things in rehab that I ruffled the feathers of. Like I had my assigned counselor was, she was obese, and I know everybody has it, but for me, I couldn't really make the distinction. And she wasn't addicted. She had a degree, right? And like you're trying to have a conversation with me about self-control, and you're obese. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't open up to her in a way that I felt was effective for me, because it's like I've always been the guy that I I take direction from my leader, you know, my coach, my mentor, Tony, that I learned bodybuilding, football, wrestling from. Like, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to live his principles. You know, I follow leaders, you know, and so I asked for another counselor, you know, and, you know, she got upset about that and stuff. And, but yeah, I feel like, you know, and when we went through that first class of FitOps, it was so enriching, so gratifying, I mean, we made connections and bonds, and, you know, people turned around their lives, and, you know, and we thought it was like this isn't going to happen again, you know what I mean? So we did the second class, and it happened again. Okay. And the third class, and it happened again. And the fourth class, and this was a huge class. It was like, I mean, normal class would be like a platoon size. Right. So we had the fourth class was like 2 platoons, right? And so watching this thing scale up and still making an effect, right? And so I worked really closely with FitOps Foundation for years until they offered me a full-time position in Arkansas at their facility that they had built. It's now called the University of Health and Performance, and any veteran that is thinking about utilizing fitness or you know, getting into that world, even just going and experiencing the camp for 3 weeks would be probably one of the best things you could do for yourself. You know? That's
awesome, because one of the things I love to talk about is you're allowed to have dreams. And I think sometimes military families, especially the spouse or the service member, will think, well, this is the tunnel I'm in. This is the path I'm on. No, you can still dream big. I mean, we have one, Sergeant Bento. She's doing children's educational coloring books. She just launched her second one on it. You know, we have others who've ended up in the real estate business, or, you know, some who've ended up in the nonprofit sector because it ended up being the world where they are. And I feel like a lot of times we hinder ourselves thinking that it's not okay to have that big of a dream big, baby. Jump, man. Give it a shot. There's places like this. There's opportunities like this where, you know, maybe somebody really wants to be a professional trainer but never had the mentorship.
Well, you know,
until yours, you know.
And one thing that really connects with me with FitOps is, like I told you before, like in the military, you were provided with a whole set of tools and skills that you embody now. You went through just in basic training, right? FitOps Foundation, there's a lot, or now it's the University of Health and Performance, isn't so much about giving things to veterans, right? Like you have a lot of nonprofits that'll give you a house or give you a car or give you a vacation or give you this. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. FitOps is giving you the opportunity to reintroduce yourself to those tools that you maybe forgot about. You know, it's giving you back at some level, right? And it just is a very great parallel to the military life when you embody fitness, because it was your job in the military. If you can utilize it in this, and now I use it. It's my profession. I coach not just veterans, but people. You know, like everyday people, you know, and I manage stores at GNC. But my whole goal in life is to help people realize what their true potential is if they want to know what it takes to get there. You know, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun. You're going to doubt yourself. You're going to get down. You're going to ask yourself, why? Why me? Why me? Why me? And then one day you're going to go, that's why. That's why I went through all that. You know, like, so for me, I'm living my best life because of all the challenges and struggle I went through, and it all, you know, good and bad. Right. So, so it's only, I feel my purpose, not as just a veteran, but a man, to be able to give those things back to people that don't recognize the value of them. You know, I love the fact that fitness and you know, healthy lifestyle is more sought after nowadays. It's all over social media, influencers, stuff like that. It's great. And there's so much information that it can be overwhelming. But the cool thing is like most of what I learned on my own because I was just curious, right?
Yeah.
And what I tell all my clients is I've already made all the mistakes that you don't have to, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but it's as easy as starting to set a goal for yourself to just go to the gym every day.
Yeah.
Just get there, you know?
Yeah.
And
I talk a lot about the SMART concept for goal setting. Mm-hmm. And I love it because S is for specific. Mm-hmm. Be specific. Don't say, I'm going to get healthy. Say, I'm going to walk at least 30 minutes 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. Give yourself quantifiable goals and celebrate those little victories. Mm-hmm. The little victories are so important to celebrate, guys. Mm-hmm. We always think we want the end game, but you got to get those steps to get to it. And you got to give yourself the praise when you hit what you need to hit to keep going on it, you know? And that's a huge thing, especially because fitness is great. Body image is still a struggle for a lot of people. And sometimes they go from one extreme to the other. And finding that aligned platform where you are, where you get the strength from what you want, where you do, you know, a thing. My husband, boxing has always kind of been his thing. Huge Rocky fan. Had to run the dang stairs in Philadelphia with him, filming him for his 50th birthday last year. Fun times. He's 6'2". I'm 5'6". Do you know how many steps he was taking at a time? And I'm trying to keep up with him when I can.
He's a big guy.
Oh yeah, he was a good guy. But it was something he wanted to do. But that's always been like we have a punching bag. It's the standing alone one, and just every once in a while he'll just go up there and just hit it a few times and stuff like that. And he's working through some kind of deal or something in his head to figure out how he wants to approach it. But it gives him that something to do to get the clarity to go. And I think that's something sometimes people don't realize when we talk about things like if fitness is your passion, if other areas are your passion from it, it's where it helps you, when it helps you realign your brain, when it helps you reset and get back to it.
And that's,
you know?
Yeah, why I have such a love-hate relationship with the actual sport of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my girlfriend Sandra, she was a women's physique pro.
Oh, go girl, come on now.
Yeah. So you know, and there's a lot of body image stuff, obviously, because it's the goal is to have the best physique, which there is no such thing.
Nope.
Right. And so, you know, when we met, you know, she had been retired from the sport for a year or so, a couple years, you know, but had such a disdain for the gym because of that. Yeah. Because of the sport. Because of the expectations, because of the concept. And it is a tough thing. Yep. I love the like getting ready for a bodybuilding show for me is like walking out into the desert and finding yourself. You find out what you're really good at. You find out what you're really bad at. You take notes, and at the end of it, you correct, right? So many people put such a precedence on their placing or how well they do in the competition that, again, they overlook the tools that they gained through the whole process. Yeah. You know? So when we first met, she was really struggling with trying to find passion with, you know, because she wanted to stay fit and exercise and be healthy. But, you know, she tried like judo, she tried a couple of different things and nothing was, and slowly just started gravitating back towards the gym but looking at it in a different way. You know, perspective has to evolve and change for you. And I don't care who you are. As you grow older, your perspective evolves and changes, and you have to allot yourself the grace to understand that everything's not going to be exactly the same as it was as you grow with it, which is really difficult to do. You know, I struggle with it myself. You know, I'm just turned 41. Like joints don't feel the way they used to. You know, like, and training hurts a lot different now. It always hurt, but now it hurts different, you know? And so now I'm grasping with, okay, what does training look like for me the next 10 years? Right. You know, and also making my passion my profession was another thing that I completely overlooked because it started to take away my passion for it. Yep. Because it became more of a profession. Becomes a burden. You know, so, you know, but the one thing that's tried and true, you know, and it's the fundamental value of anything that you want to accomplish in life is consistency. It is. You know, so, you know, we were having a conversation recently and I said, because I've been searching for new training methods. Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try that, because, I don't want to be one of those guys that say I used to work out. I used to work out. Mm-hmm. I can't stand that. I get those guys every day, So I told Sandra, I was like, I think I just need to stop listening to my inner bitch and just go back to the gym, and do what I know how to do.
Inner bitch, she's a rough one. Yeah,
because especially when you get to a level where, I've done it all. I've seen it all. I've competed at the highest level of amateur bodybuilding. I've competed at USA's twice. I know the process. I love the process, but the sport itself is full of a lot of people that are undesirable to me, because they put so much emphasis on the things that really shouldn't matter.
I think sometimes we get so caught up, we lose our humanity. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes aging kind of helps us come back in our humanity. So I was a gymnast when I was a kid. I wasn't like a state champion. My dad was. I wasn't like my dad was in the Navy. We moved, but gymnastics was my thing. And my whole life, my ankles, my knees, my family called me snap, crackle, and pop because they make noise. No big deal, no problem. I turned 35. Every once in a while, one of them pops, and all of a sudden you're like, ow, what the heck? And it was a reality. But I found that, okay, I adjust how I do my treadmill. I adjust how I used to be an elliptical girl. Nope, that just makes them mad for me. And everybody goes, oh no, that's the best. Well, not for me.
Right.
And that's where you have to find that balance to figure out what is going to be better for you on it. It is when I did acting, I got anorexic, which was very easy to do. I am 5'6". I was 112 pounds. And they wanted me to lose. No, I was 122 and they wanted me to go down to 112. And then they wanted me to get the boobs done. And then they wanted me to get my nose done. And what it did in my stubborn little self was it ticked me off. And so I said, screw you. And I walked away, kind of thing. But it was, to this day, I can't really weigh myself regularly on the scale because I feel it pull me back into and like my husband be like, what'd you have for lunch? And I'll be like, oh, I forgot to eat something. Okay, no, that's not good, kind of thing. Because it's so easy to fall back into old patterns.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm inherently lazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I had to join the army to do something. You know what I mean? Like if it's a question of whether we're doing something or chilling, I'm chilling. You know what I mean? Like if she asks me, what do you want to do? I'm doing it right now, So I have to put those, that's what bodybuilding was for me, right? Yeah. It was working towards that goal every day in spite of what it is you want to do.
Right.
Going, making a distinct difference between wants and needs, right?
Yeah.
You need to do this, right? I want to do this, but I need to do this, Yeah. And so, again, just in basic training, you learn those things,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm so happy that I've been able to be put on a platform where my story has been shared with a lot of people. And people have seen the effects of what this type of a lifestyle can do, and just know that anybody can do it.
Oh yeah.
Like veterans are a small part of our population that have a skill set that is broad beyond most people in our population, but doesn't mean that the general population can't encompass some of those skills as well. Like it's mirroring. Like what does a successful person do?
Right.
I've always said there's two types of veterans, right?
Yeah.
There's the guy on the side of the road begging for your change, and there's the Fortune 500 company owner. Both went through the same thing. What's the difference? Well,
it's like they say that you can't control what's going to happen, but you can learn to control how you respond to it.
Yep, exactly.
And I think that we tend to, a lot of times, people's natural tendency is knee-jerk reaction to something before taking a step back. We always say my dad was just, God, he was so cool as a cucumber. He could just like, situations could be crazy hectic and he'd just be fine. I mean, my goodness, the poor man had 2 daughters. He was surrounded by women in his house. And it's just, but he was always so mellow and level-headed about it. And, you know, you're like, you're the one who's going to chill. I'm like, you girl, if I'm going to get it done, it's going to get done. Like, we're not going to sit here and talk about it for an hour. No. And my poor husband's like, I'm just doing something. I'm like, dude, let's go, you know. But for me, that's my sanity. Yeah. That's my savings grace. Right. If I say I'm going to do something, I get it done. That makes me happy. Cool. That's off my plate. I move on and I go forward. Other people, that stresses them out. I get it. I get it. It's the variant. If you're near me, we're doing it. But that's because we said, let's move this from there to there. Okay, we move it. It's just a very dynamic thing. Now, what ironic is when it comes to like, because my husband is a real estate broker and people text him and email him and stuff. And if he gets a text or an email, he has to reply to it. For his own sanity, for his own clarity, it bothers him to just leave it sitting there forever. Now, if he has to research and come up, that's fine. But most of the time he has to acknowledge and let them know, I got it. I heard you. I'm working on it. So he can handle the situation better. It's learning those aspects of yourself.
Yes.
That really help you on the path. You know? And individuals like you, we've had some other guests too, that are so willing to be so candid and honest about what you've been through so that those watching can understand, there are people who have hit the bottom of the bottom and they climbed their way out and it, you know?
My life has been nothing but that.
Yeah.
Right? Like recently had a bout of depression through the holiday season that got pretty severe, you know, like, and it, you know, reflecting back on my life and the things I've been through, it's been like a steady dig myself a hole, come out of it better, dig myself a hole, come out of it better, dig myself a hole, come out of it better. You know, it's this pattern that I have, you know, so it's not like, you know, you get to a place and everything's always good, right? You know, like you have to still continue. When we got together, I said, okay, these are the things that make me good. Right. If I'm doing all of these things, then you know I'm fine. Right. I can go without 1 or 2 of them for a period of time and be fine, you know. But if you ever see me not doing all of them, get worried. Get really worried. And guess what was not happening? During that time, none of those things were happening. You know, so you know, through these trials and tribulations and overcomes and, you know, successes and triumphs that I've had, you know, I've been able to develop the method of highest effectiveness, right? And just because you know the method, it doesn't make it any easier. Absolutely. You know what I mean? You have to continue to utilize the method.
Absolutely.
I'm lazy. You know what I mean? I battle with that every day, you know, like, but she doesn't stop moving, you know? So we balance each other out because she needs to stop sometimes, you know? But for me, like I need that decompression time. You know, after a day of work or training or whatever, I need to come home and just recharge. And that's watching a documentary, that's chilling, that, you know what I mean? It is really just doing nothing and having nothing to do. You know? But it charges me. And she doesn't get it. She's like, well, you know, like, I don't get why you can't do this. And so it's been a healthy development of me moving as much as I need to, getting the things accomplished, but also, you know, recognizing, because that is one of the things, my alone time, you know, that is a very big thing for me. That's, you know, when I was going through the worst of my, you know, experiences through withdrawals, whatever, you know, the solitude was what was the catalyst for me to be able to come to the paradigm shifts in thought. To get to that next level, you know, because I'm a inherently just empathetic person. So if we're around each other, I'm more focused on what it is your wants and needs are than mine. Right. So me having alone time is literally for me. You know, so her recognizing that and me recognizing that I've got to move more, you know, sometimes, you know, like we've developed a really, really, really good system. off of it.
It's pretty awesome. My husband and I started walking in the evening, not like intensive, just walking around the neighborhood and having a conversation kind of thing. And it's just some type of movement to do, especially because we get stuck. So I'm the director of security in a company for an international staffing company. There are days I am at my desk all day long dealing with stuff. And just to get up to be able to use the restroom or something, it just, you got to plan it right because you have meetings or whatever. With his world with real estate, there's times he is just doing paperwork at his desk, and we're like, okay, we are so just stuck in that mode. So we try to do that kind of movement. Now, it gets hot in Vegas. And you can't necessarily walk in the heat as well as you can when it's pleasant weather. So what we do is we walk around our house because we have this layout with our living room and everything, and we do laps around there and talk about stuff and do our thing. So we're still getting the movement
That's awesome.
Just finding that little shift in the paradigm that worked for us that made it so we could still have the movement. Because there are days when neither of us get a chance to work out at all. You don't. Your life just takes over. So I think that I love that you focus on that, it's not, hey, I hit this spot. That's it. It's just going to be a cakewalk from here, easy street walking. Because it's not. It constantly you evolve and you work at it.
Yeah.
And it's not just addiction that you're constantly evolving and working at, guys. It's everything in life. It's the loss of the identity when a person leaves their military service. It's, the military spouse constantly striving to find their identity. These are things that will happen and you can find answers to them.
Yeah. And I one of the things that I've really tried to adopt is looking for solutions rather than reasons.
Right.
Okay, we've got a problem. I don't want to know, the burning house again. Right. I don't need to know all the details, how it happened, get emotionally charged about it. How do we fix it? How do we move forward? What's the lesson? And so, through my recovery, one of the first things that really got me over the hump of I don't crave any of that stuff anymore. I haven't had a pain pill in 15 years.
It's awesome.
And I don't want one, but when I started to recognize that all growth is painful, right? Anything painful that happened in my life, rather than looking at it like something that's bad that's happened to me, even if I had nothing to do with it, I look at it as a moment to grow and learn more about how to overcome adversity. Gives you more ownership over bad times, especially when you feel that victim behavior, like this happened to me. Like, okay, it happened to you. What was your role? How can you prevent it? Where's the lesson? And so for me now, it's been fun because when veterans would come to me with problems, I'd be like, yeah, sweet. Like, why are you so excited? I'm like, because you're going to grow.
He's adorable, Sandra. Oh my gosh. No, but you talk about a very key leadership skill because my father always said, a leader won't come to you with just a problem. A leader will come to you with the problem, but they also have a solution for the problem. So identify what it is, but let you know this is how we're going to fix it. That's a sign of true leadership. And that is something that can always evolve and grow stronger as you go through it through the varied situations and conversations with people.
And it makes life so much more fun.
It does.
It does. Because it would hit me like a breakup or job stuff or whatever. It's just like, that sucks.
Yep.
But all right, here we go.
Right?
Time to grow.
It's a new adventure. Take the adventure. All right, my friends. So FitOps.
Well, it's now called the University of Health and Performance, UHP. Yep. UHP. They're in Arkansas, Bentonville area.
Okay.
I believe they're accepting GI Bill money now.
Oh.
But honestly, as far as veteran nonprofits go, I think probably one of the best out there, just due to the fact of what it's giving you back.
Got you. And if the veteran is located anywhere in the U.S., they can reach out to them still, even though they're in Arkansas.
I think their website, University of Health and Performance. Go check it out. Google it. So it's been, that first class was, I think 2018. So we're coming up almost on a decade that it's been changing veterans' lives. Yeah.
When I got married, look at that.
Yeah,
all right. Well,
yeah.
that is awesome, Randy. Thank you so much for coming in. We would love to have you back anytime you want to talk and share. We love to have it. I know that this conversation today helped someone out there watching. And that's that we talk about passions. This is my passion. Living on a legacy, making it happen, Captain. So thank you so much for being in.
And thank you for providing this platform.
Oh, you're welcome.
Since I knew I was going to be on here, watched a lot of your podcast, and I love what you're doing. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate you for having me.
Thank you very much. No, I'm so excited. My husband ran into you at GNC. See what happens at GNC, people? Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, it's that time again. Hey, guess what? We got a website. It is live. You need to check it out and see homefrontharmony.org. We're going to be coming up with some more episodes for you. Remember to like, follow, share. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. Come find us, watch, join us, spread the word. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.